Hello. So I just want to go over some things about James with you. James is one of my favorite books. My dog is currently next to me on the couch and he's being ridiculous. So if you hear him, I'm sorry. But this is life in the Burnett house. So here we go. It's one of my favorite books. There is a lot of just practical information about living a Christian life. It's called the Proverbs of the New Testament because if you've read Proverbs in the Old Testament, it's a book of wisdom and sayings and how to live. And James kind of gives us that in the Old Testament. So I'm going to go through some information from our workbook just to talk to you about. It should make things a little bit easier for you as you are doing your workbook pages. The book of James includes the topics partiality or favoritism, faith, works or deeds, controlling the tongue, and godly wisdom. So we talk about partiality. One of the things was that in the church, they were letting all of the rich people have the best seats or get the best whatever because they were the ones giving the most money. And then they were pushing all the poor people or the people who were society outcasts and all that kind of stuff in the back and kind of pushing them out of the way. And James is like, nope, you can't do that because God doesn't have favorites, so we can't have favorites either. And so he deals with that. Faith, works, or deeds, meaning like what's more important, what we're doing or our faith in Jesus. And he talks about the combination of the two and how that's important. Controlling the tongue, which is our speech, and then godly wisdom. James made it clear that once a person submits to Christ, his or her faith in God's grace compels him or her to do good works to honor God. So what he's saying is that once we have faith in God, that faith in our relationship with God compels us or gives us the urge to do good things. So our works and our faith go hand in hand. We're not saved because we're a good person. We're not saved because we do things, because we have community service hours or we donate money or whatever. We're saved because of our faith in Jesus, but it's that faith that gives us the desire to then do those works. Active faith was exemplified by Abraham, who was willing to sacrifice his son to God, and Rahab, who hid Israelite spies and helped them escape. So we know those stories, right? Abraham and Isaac is an example. Abraham took Isaac up the mountain and had him like ready to be sacrificed, knowing that God was going to do some miracle somehow. And then God provided the ram. And then we know the story of Rahab, where she hid the spies so that they could get out of Jericho. And then God saved her family. Paul and James taught that faith for salvation comes from hearing about Jesus and trusting him alone for forgiveness. So we need to hear about him and then we trust in him. Faith plays two important roles. It brings salvation and then it produces good works, which we just talked about. James addressed bringing the tongue under submission and using godly wisdom to live a self-controlled life. Controlling the tongue takes perseverance, which means the continued effort to stay on task or hold to a belief even when encountering difficulty. I know you all, and I know the difficulty that you have with self-control and keeping your mouth shut. And this is something that James addresses multiple times in the book, or in the letter, about the control over our lives that our speech can have, positive and negative. And it's not just like if I get up in the morning and I say, oh, I'm going to have a good day, then I'm going to have a good day. But it's the way we're speaking to each other. It's the way we're speaking about each other. It's the way we're speaking about life. It's the way we talk about ourselves, right? All of those things are super important. A believer is an ambassador of Christ and should show self-control over his or her words by not lying, boasting, gossiping, or cursing. Christians have extra help available to them because of their faith in Jesus. The Holy Spirit dwells in them and helps them by making it possible to exhibit self-control. It is possible. Y'all are like, Mrs. Burnett, I can't help it when I laugh and I shouldn't get in trouble. No, it's possible because you have self-control. You have that ability. Okay. Believers should submit to God and use wisdom when they speak to others. Using wisdom when we speak. That means we're thinking before we're speaking. Some of you are thinking before you're speaking and you're choosing the wrong words anyway. But when we exercise wisdom, we are saying the right thing or not saying the wrong thing. That's also important. The author of James and the author of Proverbs encouraged using godly wisdom to live a self-controlled life in submission to God and his word. James advised believers to exhibit humility and get rid of strife, which is a quarrel or struggle or a bitter conflict. The cause of wars and fighting comes from evil desires. So when we submit and we exercise self-control, that helps us to not get into those stupid arguments about things. Pride is the root of many evil desires. The world encourages pride, but God instructs every believer to act in submission and humility, thinking and caring about him and others first. That means we are acknowledging others above ourselves in those important moments. James encouraged believers to make plans and handle wealth in a wise way by showing dependence on God's will as their guide. Meaning, like, oh, I have $100. I'm going to have God help me spend this appropriately, not I'm going to go buy $100 in bubble gum. Something stupid. Anyway, rather than focusing on temporary problems that can lead to worrying and wavering in faith, Christians should focus on Jesus' return and eternity with him. They should respond to trials with patience. James talked about perseverance as far as self-control, but he also talked about perseverance will grow your faith. And when difficult things happen, we need to keep pushing through and develop our relationship with God, and that helps us go through those difficult times. Job persevered through difficulty without sinning. He used self-control to endure and keep his faith in God. The outcome was that God showered Job with compassion and mercy. Super good example of that. And then lastly, Elijah prayed that it would not rain for 3 years, and it did not rain. Then he prayed again and it rained. Elijah exhibited the keys to successful praying, faith, and perseverance. So that is a very fast overview of the entire book, mostly focusing on the faith and the perseverance that your workbook pages will focus on this week. If you have any questions about it, please let me know. If you have time this week, reread the whole book because it's only 4 chapters and it's really good stuff. And when you read it all, it puts it all into context for you. If you have any questions about the assignments that are for this week, your workbook pages, whatever, let me know. Keep your workbook pages in your workbooks. We are going to finish your workbooks in the next couple of weeks, and I will set up a time for you to turn them in, and I will grade them all at one time. Submit your quiz, and that will be your assignment for the week. I'm not going to do Bible journals, but I am strongly suggesting that you reread the book of James. If you have any questions, let me know. Your quiz is due by Friday. Okay? Have a great week. I'll talk to you soon.